This is the exact moment Ferrari shattered the 2026 Formula One rulebook. On February 19th, engineers revealed a wild, upside-down rear wing, while Lando Norris clocked a blistering track pace. The Bahrain International Circuit hosted Day 2 of the second preseason test on Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Teams rolled out their newest engineering designs under the scorching desert sun, and McLaren and Ferrari immediately dominated the morning session headlines. Mechanics scrambled around the garages to hide sensitive aerodynamic components from rival photographers. Fans watching the official broadcast spotted something entirely unexpected on the back of the red SF26 car. Engineers across the paddock dropped their clipboards when Lewis Hamilton exited the pit lane, as the rear flap on his vehicle rotated entirely backward down the main straight. Spectators online shared the clipped footage millions of times within an hour, making this specific aerodynamic trick the biggest trending sports topic of the week. Formula One introduced heavily revised aerodynamic regulations for the 2026 season. Governing bodies intended to decrease straight-line drag and introduce new active moving parts on the chassis. Teams spent the last year building cars to meet these strict new parameters after the development ban lifted, and aerodynamicists completed hundreds of heavily regulated hours in wind tunnels trying to claw back lost downforce. Most constructors followed the traditional interpretation of the updated rulebook by building standard active rear wings that open slightly to cut drag. Ferrari engineers took a completely different approach with their latest design. Mercedes technical personnel identified a potential blind spot in the legal text regarding dynamic compression ratios. Trackside reporters noticed the bizarre behavior during the first installation laps of the morning, when Hamilton activated the drag reduction button just before the braking zone at turn 1. The carbon fiber element snapped into a position nobody thought was physically possible or legally permitted. Social media platforms exploded with slow-motion replays of the mechanism in action, and technical experts sketched diagrams analyzing how the airflow interacted with the inverted surface. Broadcasters dedicated their entire morning coverage to debating the legality of the invention. The timing of this reveal caught the entire grid off guard, leaving Red Bull and Mercedes personnel staring at the timing screens in disbelief. Data analysts recorded the SF26 reaching unprecedented top speeds before the braking markers. The telemetry numbers suggested McLaren held a massive power deployment advantage on every straight section of the Sakir track, while Ferrari excelled in the corners. Photographers positioned at turn 4 captured high-resolution images of the actuator moving. These pictures confirmed the flap traveled well beyond the standard parameters seen on other vehicles. The images circulated through team hospitality units instantly, and the entire paddock realized a massive political fight was about to erupt. Team principals frantically dialed the technical delegates on their pit wall intercoms to demand immediate inspections of the Italian garage to verify the structural integrity of the wing. Nobody could believe a major manufacturer would risk bringing such an inflammatory device to a public test session, and the sheer audacity of the engineering choice left veteran paddock insiders completely speechless. Lando Norris strapped on the C4 compound tires early Thursday morning and pushed the orange McLaren to the absolute limit around the Sakir circuit. The timing screens lit up purple in the first 2 sectors. At the line, 1 minute and 33.453 seconds sat at the very top of the leaderboard. This single lap eclipsed George Russell's previous benchmark by exactly 16 thousandths of a second, which meant McLaren officially held the fastest pace of the entire winter testing schedule. Engineers inside the Woking garage cheered as the data proved their winter simulation numbers matched reality. Norris returned to the pits, looking extremely confident with the car's balance and low-speed grip. Trackside observers noted the new McLaren handled the tricky turn 9 and turn 10 sequence better than any other machine on the grid. The attention then abruptly shifted away from the British driver. Despite pulling off a spectacular qualifying simulation, the television directors cut away from the orange car. The focus pivoted entirely down the pit lane toward the bright red garage. If you want to catch every breaking F1 development before the season starts, hit subscribe and the notification bell. We track the paddock rumors daily, so let us return to the track action. Lewis Hamilton steered the newly designed SF26 out of the garage for his morning stint, and photographers instantly noticed something bizarre about the rear wing assembly. The upper flap featured an unusually large carbon fiber mechanism near the central pillar. Traditional active rear wings simply tilt upward to open a gap for airflow, but Ferrari eliminated the conventional central actuator entirely. They opted to hide two independent actuators within the rear wing endplates, leaving the main plane and the center of the wing completely clear. Technical delegates from rival teams immediately pointed their cameras at the rear of the red car. They noticed the pivot points sat directly in the center of the upper flap, whereas other teams placed them at the leading or trailing edges. This specific geometry allowed the entire upper element to pivot on a central axis under the strict control of the dual endplate actuators. Engineers up and down the pit lane started whispering about the aggressive design choice. The result was a mounting panic among the top aerodynamicists watching the broadcast feeds, as they realized Maranello built something that completely ignored the conventional approach to drag reduction. Hamilton buried the throttle pedal as he entered the main straight and pressed the steering wheel button to activate the drag reduction system. The top flap of the rear wing did not just open slightly, but pivoted a few degrees backward to open the standard slot gap. The carbon fiber component opened its flap to reduce drag at 320 kilometers per hour. By resting in this inverted position, the element acted exactly like an airplane wing. It sliced through the turbulent air and reduced drag to almost zero. The telemetry data showed the Ferrari gaining an instant speed boost compared to its rivals, and the SF26 hit 340 kilometers per hour before the braking zone. This meant Hamilton carried a towering top speed advantage without sacrificing cornering grip. Aerodynamic experts confirmed this upside-down configuration acts like an aircraft wing, drastically reducing aerodynamic drag and creating a small amount of lift. The sheer physics of the movement shocked veteran engineers watching from the pit wall, as nobody anticipated a team attempting a full mechanical inversion of an aerodynamic surface at those extreme speeds. The governing body published a strict 250-page technical document for the 2026 season. Regulators clearly specified the maximum dimensions and permitted materials for the rear wing assembly, detailing exactly how wide the slot gap could open during high-speed running. The regulators forgot to write one specific sentence in the active aerodynamics section, as the rulebook never actually stated the wing flap must remain right side up when activated. Mercedes and Red Bull engineers read the regulations hundreds of times during the winter break and found this massive blind spot in the legal text. The technical team built a system that legally complies with the dimensional limits while ignoring the intended spirit of the rules. Rival team principals immediately flooded the race director's radio channel to complain and demanded an instant ban on the rotating mechanism before the first Grand Prix. The governing body technical delegates admitted the design technically passes all static load tests. The paddock quickly realized Maranello executed the smartest engineering heist of the decade. The staggering top speed numbers came with a massive operational cost. After completing just a handful of installation runs, the red car limped back into the pit lane. Mechanics quickly pushed Hamilton inside and pulled the modesty screens across the garage doors. The seven-time world champion climbed out of the cockpit and removed his helmet, spending the next 3 straight hours sitting helplessly in the back of the garage. The timing screen showed Hamilton completing exactly 5 laps throughout the entire morning session. While Lando Norris pounded around the track collecting hundreds of gigabytes of tire data, Ferrari sat completely idle. The team analyzed standard aerodynamic data from the rear wing during the session. The standard DRS flap opened to reduce drag, while the carbon fiber mounting points supported the standard rear wing under normal testing conditions. The result was a broken actuator that the mechanics could not easily replace, and rival teams smiled as the red car remained jacked up on stands while precious testing time vanished entirely. Ferrari team principal Fred Vasseur eventually stepped out to address the waiting media pack. He stood in front of the hospitality unit and tried to downplay the lengthy delay. Vasseur told reporters the team experienced a very small issue with an experimental aerodynamic part and admitted the mechanics lacked the necessary spare components to fix the broken mechanism immediately. The factory in Maranello instead focused their overnight efforts on analyzing data, from the new active aero and exhaust-blown diffuser. Vasseur refused to confirm if the rotating wing would return for the afternoon session, simply smiling when journalists asked about the legality of the 180 to 225-degree flip. The team boss insisted the SF-26 strictly followed every single written word in the 2026 rulebook. The lack of running time severely hurt Hamilton's preseason preparation schedule, as he desperately needed long-run mileage to understand tire degradation on the new chassis. This meant Ferrari traded valuable reliability data for a highly controversial straight-line speed experiment. Observers questioned if the aggressive design risk would actually pay off during a full race distance. Engineers at Red Bull and Mercedes did not wait for the afternoon session to react. Technical directors immediately ordered their drafting departments to study the broadcast footage, and aerodynamicists began running rapid computer simulations to understand the exact drag benefits of the inverted flap. They calculated the mechanical stress required to rotate a carbon element at top speed. Several team bosses gathered outside the governing body's temporary office in the paddock to formally request a technical clarification regarding the specific phrasing in the active aerodynamics rulebook. The rival constructors want the controversial wing banned before the opening race in 3 weeks. If the regulators declare the design legal, every single team will face a massive development headache. They will have to spend millions of dollars redesigning their entire rear impact structures to accommodate a similar rotating mechanism. The whole situation created absolute chaos during a testing session that usually focuses on gathering a wide range of vital reliability and performance data, signaling the true political war of the 2026 season had officially begun. The events of February 19 completely rewrite the expected narrative for the upcoming racing calendar. Fans anticipated a straightforward battle based on the new engine regulations, especially since the Formula One calendar confirms the upcoming season is the 2026 season. The sudden introduction of an inverted rear wing forces every spectator to watch the technical development race instead. If the governing body approves this specific aerodynamic loophole, the entire grid will look completely different by the European leg of the championship. Manufacturing a reliable 180-degree rotating mechanism without a central actuator requires immense financial resources and wind tunnel time. Smaller, independent teams simply lack the budget to design, test, and implement such a radical structural change before the summer break. This forces a massive performance gap between the wealthy factory operations and the midfield competitors. The telemetry data indicates a top speed advantage so severe that overtaking on long straights becomes utterly defenseless. The 3 hours of lost track time presents a serious immediate problem for Lewis Hamilton. Drivers require hundreds of laps to build muscle memory and understand the braking limits of a brand new chassis. Missing most of the morning running during a heavily restricted testing schedule actively damages his preparation for the opening round. The radical design raises fears that the inverted wing generates terrifying levels of structural stress that Ferrari engineers must carefully manage. Legal challenges will dominate the news cycle over the next 10 days, and rival team principals will likely file an official protest the moment the SF-26 rolls out for the first qualifying session in early March. The regulators face an impossible decision regarding the technical rulebook. Banning the device punishes a team for reading the rules perfectly and designing components within the written text, while allowing the device forces a multi-million-dollar spending war that contradicts the strict financial cost cap outlined in the Formula One official regulations. We predict the governing body will issue a technical directive clarifying the intended resting position of the rear wing flap. They will likely allow Ferrari to use the device for the first 3 races before forcing a mandatory redesign. This exact timeline gives Mercedes and Red Bull enough time to develop their own versions or lobby heavily for a total ban. The drama ensures the 2026 season opener will break viewership records, as fans tune in purely to see if the red car finishes the race or snaps its own wing off at 340 kilometers per hour. A speed F1 technical specifications show is achievable? Lando Norris securing the fastest pace completely flew under the radar due to the Italian team's theatrics. McLaren delivered a terrifyingly consistent and reliable machine that works perfectly right out of the box. While Maranello fights political battles over experimental parts in the garage, the Woking squad faced heavy disruptions due to technical issues on their MCL40 car. The true consequence of this aerodynamic stunt might be McLaren running away with the early championship lead, while their rivals bicker in the steward's office. Whether Ferrari's new aerodynamic design dominates the 2026 season or gets banned by Monday, they successfully hijacked the entire winter testing narrative away from McLaren's blistering pace. If you enjoyed this technical breakdown, hit subscribe for more daily F1 analysis.